Welcome to 11 Warriors Film Study. I'm Kyle Jones. Today we are going to talk about the national championship game. We're going to preview the matchup between two Midwestern powerhouses colliding down south in Atlanta. That's right, the Ohio State Buckeyes will take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this Monday night. Of course, the schematic story is these two defenses coming into this game. They've been playing at such a high level. The Irish, certainly their calling card is their defense. For Ohio State, it's really become the strength of the team the second half of the season. So we're going to take a look at this game, less so from an even what is the tale of the tape, what does each team do well. We're really going to look at this again. This is an Ohio State website. We're going to look at it. What can the Buckeyes do to get past this Notre Dame team? What should they expect from the Fighting Irish if you're not familiar with them? We're going to spend a lot of time just looking at what has worked for the Irish and where there might be opportunities for the Buckeyes to take advantage. Now, of course, the number one story coming into this has been Notre Dame's reliance on man coverage. Seems like a tenuous idea against Jeremiah Smith and the Ohio State passing game that has been so explosive for the last month or so, especially when Texas was able to negate some of that explosiveness by playing so much zone. Now, of course, the storylines coming out are that Notre Dame is going to continue to just be who they were. Now, I don't fault them for that at all. It's what brought you here, so I understand wanting to rely on that, but of course, the dance will be how much zone does Al Golden and do Marcus Freeman mix in? And then, of course, how many points can the Irish offense score? You know, this is a unit that is very run heavy. The team, of course, for the Irish reminds me a lot of Marcus Freeman's old head coach at Ohio State, Jim Tressel. They're excellent on special teams. We're not going to get into that today, but certainly that's an area where Ohio State's going to have to be on their best, because Notre Dame's certainly going to be at their best. They do a lot of things well. They run the football well. They control field position well. And, of course, they play excellent defense. So we're going to dig into that. We're going to start with the Irish offense, talk about Riley Leonard and that side of the ball, and then we're going to spend the majority time talking about the Irish defense and what opportunities may exist for the Ohio State offense to get past such a man-heavy defense and some of the counters they throw at them. So let's dig in. Looking forward to this extra-large film study. All right, let's talk about the moment that most folks got introduced to Jeremiah Love and really the defining characteristic of this offense. 98 yards through the Indiana defense early on in that CFP quarterfinal really set the tone for an Irish really controlled, dominating victory. Obviously, midway through this game, people were discussing, does Indiana belong? But let's talk about what happened here, because what we can see as we get going, we get a motion across from a third tight end, right? This is 13 personnel, and the only guys outside of the box are that free safety in that corner. Now, the story here to me is the work by these three offensive linemen. We're going to get the center and the guard working against really Indiana's two best players, which are the nose tackle and this defensive end. The defensive end here, Mikhail West, I believe he was an all Big Ten player. The nose tackle there, number 8, was a wrecking ball all season. Now what you're going to see right away, 74 in the center, working weight. 74 is doing a good job. He's well coached. I'm going to make sure that number 0 here isn't slanting right through the A gap. Right, I'm going to make sure that my center's good, because otherwise I'm going up and I'm trying to get this linebacker, which he does a great job of. You know, he immediately climbs, gets a body on him, actually rips. You can see how low they're getting. He's actually ripping the towel off the linebacker's butt. That's how well they're coached. Meanwhile, this is probably the block of the play. The left tackle here is going to drive Mikhail West, again, an all Big Ten player, backwards, and that's going to create the gap for Jeremiah Love. Love's just reading it. You can see right here through this space between the tackle and tight end, that's going to be enough for Love to get through. Breaks, gets one hand on it, stiff arm, and he's gone. Now, again, Jeremiah Love's an outstanding player. He's been a little bit dinged up. He can obviously make a lot of magic happen. An incredible touchdown we saw against Penn State where he just really fought for every yard. But the reality is this is an offensive line driven offense. It all starts up front, even though they've had a revolving door of folks, coming in and out of the lineup due to injury, just like every other team, it seems, in the CFP. They're so well coached that they're able to create these types of running lanes. Now that offensive line gets a lot of help from Mike Denbrock, the OC. He does a lot here to help them and using motion. They use a ton in formation and alignment. Again, if you're an opposing defense, you've got to be on top of that, making sure that you're in the right look, whatever your game plan is, whatever your checks are based off of alignment, personnel, motion. We can see in this instance, again, against the Hoosiers, they're in what we call an even formation where they've got 2 receivers right, 2 receivers left, and the backs directly behind the quarterback. There is no strength to this formation. So, as is common in college football and high school as well, India's going to take that 11th defender and they're going to put him to the wide side of the field, right? They're on the left hash from the defense's perspective, so we're going to put that extra defender out right. Sounds normal. But what we're going to get from the Irish here is we're going to get, first off, a motion from the back to shift over. Okay, so now he's to the right, and then we're going to see this tight end come across. We're going to see him line up. We don't really get much else. What we see actually is we get, the nickel is going to drop out as a zone coverage, but we don't get any movement from the front, meaning these 6 guys don't move despite the fact that the tight end just moved from a detached position to now an attached, essentially, creating a 6th, an extra gap along the line. And sure enough, what happens? We get an outside zone handoff, it comes right around the edge, breaks, one tackle in space, and it's a big gain. Now, again, we don't get any movement from the front, right? Move my big head out of here. We're going to see this tight end come across. Indiana's defensive line does not move, and that allows them to seal this edge, right? You're able to get the tight end to seal around number 6, and then we're going to get this wide open corner right here for the running back. So again, these little things. Additionally, you can see out of the corner, the wide receivers for Notre Dame do an excellent job of blocking. We're going to get a down block here. We're going to get a down block here to really pin and create. They work hard. It's a team effort up here. The wide receivers aren't really known to be a huge threat offensively. They do it. They're better than Penn State's, of course, but they're going to do a lot of work in the blocking game to open up gaps for their backs, creating holes downfield. So again, Ohio State's going to have to be really paying attention to all these little details if they want to come out on top against this Irish run game. Now, the Irish aren't a huge RPO team. They will run them, especially in short yardage and inside the red zone. We can see here they're able to bait the middle linebacker for Indiana to come up and play. Actually, the free safety in this role in this goal line offense, you're going to see number 24 here. He's going to come down, seeing the run fake, and then we're going to get really like kind of a feint from 83 before he takes off right into that space behind him. Riley Leonard does a nice job of reading that. Again, we can see him coming down here, right, and just throws right into that space behind it. So we don't see it a ton from the Irish. Let's watch from the end zone view here because you can see this is a great example of Leonard's size. He looks very thin and slight, but he's actually a very big player here. He's going to throw over 3 defenders. How he gets his ball off is pretty impressive. It's one of the reasons NFL scouts are interested, despite the numbers, because he's able to change his arm angle, drops back, sees it, and then lofts it right over these 3 guys, puts it on. It's a little bit high, but puts it right there for his guy. So accurate in these RPO throws. Again, they save them for when it matters most. They don't wear them out throughout the course of the game. But again, when you get in these short yardage, and you never know, it's the national championship. There's no reason to hold anything back. I feel like we're in the water boy all of a sudden with Dan Fouts. But there's no reason for them to hold anything back. You could see a little bit more, although typically it's only been in these short yardage goal line situations. Now, if you've been watching the CFP, you've been watching Notre Dame throughout the year, you probably know Riley Leonard's biggest threat from the quarterback spot. Even though this may not be true, the narrative is really that his legs are the biggest threat. Again, they don't use him a ton. They've been using him a little bit more outside of just short yardage situations. We've got a 2nd and long, and they run quarterback counter for a huge gain here. He's a big physical runner. Works between the tackles. He's not afraid of contact, and he can run away from a defender. We're just going to get a counter play here from the Irish, with an extra hat in the box. We get the tight end who motions in. We're going to get a puller here, right? And we're going to get a lead block from the running back. So it's really quarterback power, quarterback counter, whatever you want to call it, power counter. 2 lead blockers, right? The play is really meant to go around here. That's really where these lead blockers are taking him. But Leonard does a great job. He's watching number 3 to see, is he going to peel over the top? And instead what happens is 3 starts to pull over. Riley Leonard does a really nice job of reading the play. We've got, the center and the tackle are pushing everything out that way. So he reads what's happening here. He watches number 3. He's got instincts as a good ball carrier, puts his foot in the ground, plants, and he's able to just run past Georgia's middle linebacker, breaks 1 tackle in open field, runs past a couple other defenders. So this is something Ohio State surely has been paying attention to, trying to understand down and distance. Again, Denbrock does a great job of mixing up tendencies based off of formation, alignment. He's not going to give Ohio State the answers right away and say, hey, they're in this formation, watch for quarterback run, or hey, they're just in this situation. Obviously, short yardage and goal line need to be looking out for it. But I would expect that Riley Leonard's legs are going to play a huge part in this game plan for the Irish on Monday. Now, one of the tactics that we've seen work against this Notre Dame offense that I would expect to see a little bit from Jim Knowles is we're going to see some field pressure. Now, this is just a running play that's going to get stuffed, and it looks just like, hey, great job by the Penn State defense to really just envelop the run game. But I want to show a little bit really quickly how this came to be. We see the two high safeties, right? It looks like it's a cover two, a quarters look, but it's going to be a field blitz where we're going to get this nickel pressure coming off the edge, and we're going to have cover three behind it, right? We're going to get one of the safeties coming down into the box, right? He's going to come down and defend that player to take away the RPO. But more importantly, this is not a five-man pressure. This is a four-man pressure where they're playing cover three, right? And I say that again, 1, 2, 3, the safeties dropping. We got this guy in the alley. We've got our two linebackers. Abdul Carter's dropping in coverage here. And this is something we've seen both J.C. Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer do for Ohio State this year. I would expect to see it more. And the beauty of that is, one, you're going to get this edge pressure off from the nickel. He's going to intercept and essentially close off what is a pull from the right tackle. It's a dart concept. It's similar to power, just a gap scheme where you're pulling a backside player and you're going to, that's going to be the lead blocker for the runner. But what you're going to see is that guy's going to intercept the puller and really close off the angle for the back. And that's going to funnel him back towards, let's watch from the end zone view here, right? We can see here comes that nickel pressure and suddenly 55, like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to turn up here and try to block. We've got the linebackers. We got a linebacker who's doing a good job of staying stacked behind the defensive tackle, who's just eating a double team to keep the linebackers free. Oh, and by the way, nobody's blocking the best player on the field. That's Abdul Carter right here, who's dropped into a zone. Meanwhile, it's away from the play, which allows him to be a free hitter, right? So linebacker, yeah, we get a tackle. It's going to come against this linebacker. But we've got our blitzing nickel and we've got Abdul Carter who are there to make a tackle, just really blowing up the entire idea of the blocking scheme. Whatever the gaps that you look like you have as an offense beforehand, those are taken away. So again, I would expect certain, similar tactics that we see from Jim Knowles, edge pressures like that, simulated pressures where you're sending an extra rusher, but it's not one of the front four, and allowing one of those talented DNs to be a little bit of a free hitter in the run game. Ohio State's done it before. I expect to see it on Monday night. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Notre Dame passing game. Obviously, it's not the feature or the primary part of the Irish offense. I think anyone would tell you that. They've been effective enough. Again, the receivers have made some plays. It's really, to me, about Riley Leonard's arm and how much are we going to see it unleashed. Again, NFL evaluators have been really interested in his run this postseason, and this throw is a big reason why. A back shoulder fade to his tight end who's got a one-on-one down the sideline. There's pressure coming at him. You can see there's a five-man rush coming in his face. He's going to almost get hit. He does a good job of changing the arm angle once again without having a clear, landing pad, and he puts it right on his guy. We're going to see again. Here comes Abdul Carter. We're going to get denied. Dennis Sutton's going to push the pocket right in his face. He's not able to fully step into the throw. He kind of falls back as he's throwing it, and he puts that right between the eights. There's one spot. This guy's not open. Mitchell Evans, a tight end, who's a good player, an Ohio native from the Cleveland area. This guy's not open. The safety does a really nice job on him, but he puts that ball in the only place where his guy can get it. Just a really impressive display of arm talent. Again, he's got the capability, even though they don't always ask him to. However, as we'll show here in a second, we don't see him always taking advantage of that. And what I mean here, this is a different clip, obviously, from the Indiana game. What we're going to see here is he drops back, looks, and then just takes off. And this is something Ohio State fans have seen plenty. Obviously, he's got the legs that, if that's his third read, which is just take off and run, that's still a pretty good situation. He can go get you 5 yards pretty easily. But he's got plenty of time in the pocket, and he chooses not to take it. Now, I want to show why I highlighted this play, because they're going to get quarters coverage here, which means, they've got, it's going to get man coverage. I apologize, confused two plays here. They got man coverage here. It's a quarters beater, the concept they're running. He's going to look to this side, and it's really a smash concept, right? He's going to look high-low, and then he's going to look backside. This is very similar to what Ohio State runs, where if you don't have that front side concept, you're going to get a crosser here. And then you've got a backside, which turns into a curl from the tight end. But really, this backside, number 2, is going to be the read he's got to make, and it's there. He turns, he hits, and he hitches. Right now, you can see this linebacker has stepped up on the back. We've got man coverage here. Yes, this nickel, who's playing way off, has number 5, the receiver. There's a clear window for Riley Leonard to throw the football. I don't know why he's not throwing it, why he's not taking advantage of it. If we watch from the end zone view, you can see it even more clearly, right? He drops back. There is so much space here for him to throw this football to number 5. The only guy in the way is the umpire, right? The man-to-man coverage is beat. The linebacker who's playing a rat number 4, who's just kind of reading the quarterback's eyes, he's not in a position to make the play. And for whatever reason, Leonard doesn't pull the trigger, tucks, and runs. Now, against Ohio State, he's going to have to make that throw. He has to try to fit that in there, and Ohio State has to do what they can to take those windows away. But even if they don't take those away, if Leonard's not making those throws, I don't see a world in which the Irish offense has enough firepower to stay in that game. All right, switching sides to the Irish defense. Everyone by now probably knows they're a heavy man coverage team. It's been one of the biggest narratives. This is a good reason why. You can see USC, they start in a tight bunch formation, and they come out to an empty look, and they're just going to run good old mesh. If you remember Ohio State against those Don Brown Michigan defenses, this is going to look familiar. The easy button answer that I think most people have is Ohio State just needs to run mesh. Let's watch it one more time again. First off, you get a good idea of what the defense is doing when you shift like this. You can see there's a single high safety. They're spread out. They're playing one-on-one, right? They're man over man. And as we get this, as the play begins, you can see man, man, man. And that's going to allow a natural pick by this tight end, right? Right here in the middle of the field, you can see this is what you're trying to get. It's a natural pick, which is going to leave this wide receiver wide open with tons of grass in front of him. Now, everybody is going to say throw mesh, Ryan Day, run mesh 70 times like you did against those Don Brown teams. I'm sure we will see it, but Notre Dame's also aware of this. They're a well-coached unit. Marcus Freeman and Al Golden are no dummies. They've got some options, built in, which we'll go over in a second, but let's just watch one more time. If you're able to get them in it, this is a good way to get those talented corners. They're young, but, I'm sure Irish fans feel like this is probably interference, but it's just called a rub. Ohio State's got to make sure to try to find that, test the limits of what the officials are going to call in this instance. But my bet is at least once or twice we're going to see this mesh concept. So we're able to, of course, look back at what Golden and Freeman did using a similar philosophy last season against the Buckeyes, different quarterback, different stud receiver, but again, using single coverage. And, I think one of the big things I would look for from Ohio State in this game are double moves like we see here from Emeka Egbuka, not just Jeremiah Smith on the deep ball, but as we can see at the top, we're going to get, everybody's thinking about Marvin Harrison down here on this glance route. You've got Cade Stover underneath, but it's up top here with Emeka Egbuka who's going to run an out and up, and that's really going to get wide open. Now, the timing didn't feed out. He's going to use this pick from Julian Fleming, who's going to come on an under route or an over route like that, and he's going to turn up, right? It looks like it's just a quick out and up, and boom, puts that cornerback on skates. His route running ability, I think, will come in big. I would expect a really big game from Egbuka just because of the way he can run routes. Same with Tate. There's going to be so much focus on Jeremiah Smith that I would expect these two to have a big game if you're going to leave those guys in single coverage, right? So this play, of course, for those who remember, was not called a catch. Turned out to be a huge moment in the game. But, the route concept worked. It was there. Ball's a little bit overthrown. Hopefully you can see something a little bit different from Will Howard if you're an Ohio State fan. But again, double moves, something that I think Ohio State's going to employ against this man coverage. Now, another area I'd expect Ohio State to try to attack Notre Dame's man coverage is with the running backs in the passing game. I don't just mean screens and checkdowns, but designed concepts to attack the matchups of a running back against this cover one look. Again, let's look at this concept from Louisville, who did a great job of using some similar concepts I would expect from Ohio State. They've got man coverage here. You've got this receiver to the top of the screen in a nasty condensed split. You've got 3 receivers to the boundary. It's a goofy set. The defense really doesn't love defending these, but you've got, most importantly, this running back on this middle linebacker here in man coverage. That middle linebacker's shifted over because he's expecting to defend the A-gap against the run. And instead, what we're going to see is this little short motion to widen out and then come up and out, right? It's a choice route. You see this, Alvin Kamara from the Saints runs this every single week and with tons of success, and he's going to run it behind this slant route, which is going to create traffic for that linebacker. Let's watch it again in slow motion, right? He motions out, gets there, reads the linebacker. If for some reason the linebacker is out here, he might come back inside, but it's a choice, and he sees, hey, my guy's all the way here. I'm going to dart out to all this open space because I know that receiver's creating a diversion for me. Now imagine this is Travion Henderson. That's a big advantage for Ohio State if you're able to get him the ball like that out in space. So again, I'd expect the running backs, whether it's Judkins or Henderson, getting these designed pass concepts, trying to get one-on-ones against the Irish linebackers because that's very much in Ohio State's favor when they're able to create that. Now, as we said, Freeman and Golden, they're no dummies. They know exactly what offenses are trying to do, and they're expecting to see man. They're going to try to find indicators like motion. This is a good example in that Louisville game against a good offense who does things to help their quarterback, like use motion here. What do we see? We see this receiver coming across, and you're going to see this receiver or this nickel follow. If I'm a quarterback and I see these two things happening, I see my nickel coming in motion and a defensive back following him, that says to me he's following him in man coverage. That is not what Notre Dame's going to do behind the play. What you're going to see instead is it's a cover two, right? It's a two deep, four under. They're treating this like it's called a lock concept. Shout out Coach Radcliffe. This is a lock concept, almost like if you were sending a fifth rusher. Now, Notre Dame does send a lot of five-man pressures. We'll talk about in a second. So they're used to playing coverage with only six guys. And in this case, we've got two deep and we've got four under. We got both corners, both linebackers. They're treating it as if this guy here who's locked up in man coverage as if he's an additional blitzer. He's not part of our coverage, but he is just keeping eyes only in man coverage. If they're going to throw, a quick out, it's a jet sweep, that kind of stuff. So you're sending a signal to the offense, hey, look for man coverage. In reality, they're playing zone behind it. So again, they know exactly all the tricks of use motion, run mesh, all those things that work against cover one, against man. They know the answers too, and they're no dummies. They're going to do things to try to confuse Will Howard, get to bait him into throwing picks, into thinking it's one coverage and actually playing a different one. So again, they're not dummies. It's going to be a fun chess match between Al Golden and Chip Kelly, but they've got the answers in their toolbox as well, even though they want to major in man coverage in that cover one. Now we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about the run game, because one of the things we saw Notre Dame do a lot last year was they would create five-man pressures. You can see the middle linebacker creeping up into that A gap, and that's enough to really disrupt what Ohio State was trying to do from a zone pressure or from a zone running scheme. Now, again, it looks like it's a normal 4-2-5. We do have some interesting alignments where we've got 2-eye, where both tackles are lined up directly over the guards. And then you're going to see 27 here kind of come right over the center. That creates what we call a bear front, right? So the center and both guards are covered up. That is death for an inside zone concept, right? And that's what happens here, right? We've got these inside gaps are just absolutely plugged up. Number 8 is able to kind of mirror the running back a little bit. You've got outside contain. Now Trevion's going to try to cut back through this B gap, but the other, the Will linebacker is in great position to make this tackle. Notre Dame ran this concept with great success. They also lined up in just a traditional bear front with 3 defensive linemen down like that. So it'll be interesting to see, because behind it too, what they're doing is they're playing straight man. This is single coverage. This is actually an RPO where, it looks like, hey, can we get a quick screen out here? Well, unfortunately, you've got 2 guys over that. So Kyle McCord, in this instance, he's got to say, I'm going to hand it off. There's a free safety in the middle of the field. There's man coverage. Now, in this instance, if you're Ohio State, the easy answer is, hey, if you're going to line up like this and we've got Jeremiah Smith outside, take it. That's something we saw a little bit against Tennessee, where it was, if you see this pressed up receiver or pressed up corner like this and it's a run play, we're going to build in an option for you to just toss that ball out. Be interesting to see if that continues this week. But against the run, again, you can see it from this view. I would expect Notre Dame to do what they can to try to plug up the interior gaps and just take away any zone runs that Ohio State attempts. All right, one way you can also manipulate run defenses that are in single high, in this man coverage, is you can use formation and motion. Now we see right away, we get motion from the receiver, the ball's snapped, we're going to get another piece of motion, which we'll go over in a second, and that creates a big gap, even though you're backed up against your own goal line. Louisville did a great job of using this and recognizing Notre Dame's going to be in man. So first and foremost, you see this first motion out of that bunch set, and you can see everybody in the defense, they're rolling the coverage, right? Instead of just covering, having one guy come all the way across, they're rolling. So the free safety is going to come down. The nickel is now going to become your free safety. But number 20 is still locked up in man coverage against number 5 here. That's a receiver. We've got the safety, number 8 on the tight end. The problem here is that number 20 is also a run defender with this alignment. He's got to take care of an interior run gap. He's got to fill that gap that exists right now between number 5 and number 83. But as the ball is snapped, you're going to see that's almost like this is a tight end in a split zone who's there to kick out the end, right? They leave the end unblocked. It's an option play where they're going to hand it off because this guy's going to actually come down to take that away. But what's also happening is with this movement, you're seeing that corner in man coverage is going to follow him and mirror him. He doesn't want to let him catch a quick ball out in the flat. That's a fast guy. Additionally, these linebackers are taught that when you see that split zone flow, I got to get over. There's a gap going this way. They're looking to create the cutback, and that is enough for number 50 to climb up and seal that gap on the middle linebacker. That's what creates the gap is this motion, right? We'll watch it one more time. This movement from a wide receiver in the backfield. Imagine if that's a Emeka Egbuka, which you very easily can't because they've done this numerous times, Ohio State has. That might be enough to open up these seams. Again, when you are playing single high, when you are playing man coverage against a run defense, as a run defense, it is easy for the offense to manipulate you and decide literally where you are standing if you're going to play that coverage. I expect Chip Kelly to do that quite a bit, or at least try to, on Monday night. All right, so you're probably watching and wondering, hey, why are you talking about zone blocking so much? I thought Ohio State ran counter now. Isn't that who they are? That's who they were against Tennessee and Oregon. We saw less of it against Texas. The good news for Ohio State fans in that regard is, if you recall from that matchup against the Irish last year, the big play that really changed the game, Travion Henderson's long touchdown run, guess what concept it came on? That's right, folks. It came on counter, right? Let's watch what we mean in the backfield. Well, first off, let's pay attention to the alignment. We've got a formation into the boundary, which means we got 1, 2, 3 of the secondary players are all outside to the short side of the field, outside the hashes. We're going to get this free safety over the top right. He's your middle linebacker, or your center fielder, if you will. And what you're going to see is Notre Dame's going to try to create a 5-man front, right? We've got the will linebacker walked up. We're going to see in a second that you've got the nose tackle in an odd look, right? We go back here. They stem into an odd front where we've got a 404, meaning we've got a guy inside shoulder both tackles, and a center who is covered by the nose tackle. We've got 2 edges and a middle linebacker who's really there to kind of clean up and be the free hitter. That's great against zone, not so much against counter, because you're going to see Donovan Jackson wash down. You're going to see Josh Simmons wash down, and then you're going to see Matt Jones kick out. You're going to see Cade Stover pull around and seal that middle linebacker, right? Let's watch it again. It's a GT counter. So Josh Fryer in this instance, he's going to come around and seal against the middle linebacker. 55 kicks out. He's going to seal up, and that's enough for Travion Henderson. He does a good job, right? The middle linebacker actually tries to close this gap, but Trey's able to see, hey, there's nothing but green grass around me. It's me versus a safety. There's no question that Notre Dame has watched this film countless times, and they're aware that Ohio State's going to try to run counter. So they're going to have to balance that between, are we selling out to stop zone like we did against Ohio State last year and get gashed, or maybe this is a counter team now. How do we hedge that bet if you're the Irish? So it's going to be a fun chess match to see just how much Chip Kelly leans on these gap schemes, because there is clearly a precedent of them working against this defense and this defensive coordinator in the past. Our last video we're going to get into, if you're able to run counter and you know the defense is looking for it, we have to see, if you're an Ohio State fan, you have to see some gadget plays and counters off of counter, if you will. What do I mean by that? Same side toss when you're running counter blocking, right? Which we see here from USC. They major in counter, if you will. What I want to say is you're going to see the backside guard and tackle pull like we just saw in the play before from Travion Henderson. But the ball is going to pop outside, right? So those pulling guards, they're going to pull the linebackers this way. The linebackers are going to say, hey, it's counter. The ball's going that way. You can see the back should be going that way. But instead, what happens, he's going to pop outside. Meanwhile, we're going to get this motion from the tight end who's motioning in, and he's going to seal the edge here. He's going to seal the edge. And the nice part, again, I mentioned a couple plays ago, you know where you can dictate where the defense is going. Watch the way 15 just follows 81 out of this play, right? He seals the linebacker. He's got his back turned to the ball, essentially, right? He's not in a position. Now it's a foot race between him, a cornerback, and the running back in the open field. Advantage to the running back, just a quick stiff arm, able to get the corner. So we saw a lot of these type of gadgets, these one-offs, constraints as we call them. So, if you start to play counter too heavily, we're going to have an answer for that. Chip Kelly has historically been so good at it in the first half of the season for Ohio State. We saw that a lot. Haven't seen as much in the second half of the season. I would expect that if there's ever a time for him to empty the playbook and go and find all of those, constraints to kind of open up counter, this is the game to do it. Don't leave anything in the toolbox. We know Chip's capable of it, and if there's ever a team to run those against, it's probably this Irish in this situation.